Afternoon, everyone. Ado here, social care consultant, clinical supervisor, trainer, and facilitator. I've been thinking a lot recently about trauma and how it how it damages people, and how some of our normal, very normal interactions may be damaging too. And I had further thought about. I'd heard someone talking about um, people in recovery who, as it's euphemistically called, fall off the wagon, and how they go into a very deep dive of blame and notions of I should have seen this coming, and why didn't I recognise this, and why wasn't I able to stop it, and all of that sort of stuff. Everyone that I've talked to who's lived with trauma in their lives, and some very notable people, Gabor Mate and Van der Kolk, some of the academics, some wonderful work done with social workers and social care workers by a friend of mine, Dr. Nicola O'Sullivan. Some brilliant stuff written about and discussed on numerous media circuits and podcasts and TV programs, stemming from Dr. Katrina O'Sullivan's book Poor, where all of these individuals have identified that, and without being trite and being dismissive, that the antidote to trauma is connection. And in relation to someone living with addiction, they may well go into a recovery program, residential or non-residential. They may well have a long period of sobriety. So, and I mean sobriety insofar as that their methodology or their mode that they are using, whatever that might be, drugs or alcohol or sex or gambling or whatever that is, eating in my case, that they may have gained control of that somehow. And when that happens, then does the connection happen? And for me and many others, if you want to gain some control around what has affected you in the past, it's really important that you're surrounded by really positive, caring, supportive, loving, congruent people. Everyone says that. Everyone who works at that level in trauma practices say that. Anyone that I know who has self-experience of traumatic events in their life, look outwards at others to say that, having a loving connection with these people has kept me safe. So very important. And then a final thought that struck me: someone I know and love very dearly was in a very traumatic event recently. And we all want that person to heal and be well again. But as part of that process, there are questions we have. What happened, and how did it happen, and why did it happen, and how are you feeling, and if you're wounded, what are your wounds like, and all of that sort of stuff. And I was just sitting here earlier on with my wife talking about it and going, do you know what? In the very act of us showing care, we may be helping that person revisit their trauma. I'm not saying for a minute that we shouldn't ask people how they are or what happened, but we need to be really careful, don't we? Trauma is so deeply embedded and so difficult to work with. So if you show up and show love and show care and be there and be a constant and give that support, and sometimes just sit in silence and don't ask any questions at all. that might be the very thing we need at this moment. I'll leave you with that thought. Cheers.